guess, what are your thoughts on Purdue and the challenges that they present?
I like the shirt, by the way.
Thanks.
I'm a Yankees fan, but I like it.
No.
Purdue, obviously, they've been the kind of the standard in the league for the last several years. So we have the utmost respect for their program. Obviously, Coach Painter has done a great job. And it's probably almost 2 decades now, I would think, coming close to it. And so we know we're going to be going into a really hostile environment against a well-coached team, coming off a loss. They'll be highly motivated, obviously trying to stay at the top part of the league. And so we're going to have to play some really good basketball to give ourselves a chance.
Do you think about that as a coach, that they did just lose their last game?
Yeah, I mean, you obviously know, you try to think about the mindset of the opponent when you're preparing for them. And obviously, you can always spin it either way. Sometimes the team maybe gets too comfortable if they're winning, but certainly teams don't want to lose consecutive games at home. And so, having been through enough college basketball seasons, you got to expect to get their best shot. Never know how much a factor their travel played in their last game. Right? It's been, Illinois lost to USC after coming back from the West Coast. Obviously, we came back from the West Coast, didn't play our best basketball in the first couple games back. So, yeah, I think just understanding what their mindset is, it certainly goes into how we try to prepare our team.
You talk about the hostile environment, what comes to mind? Like, what are some of the most hostile that you've played and coached in?
Man.
Where do you think this will kind of rank in that echelon?
So actually, I've coached there before. It was a long time ago.
What was the circumstance?
I was an assistant coach at Wofford, 2007, I believe, 2006, 2007, somewhere in there. We actually beat them. I think it was Robbie Hummels. This is how long ago it was. Robbie Hummel and those guys were freshmen. They were freshmen in college. And it was part of a tournament. We went out to Vegas and played a couple games, but it was around the holiday, maybe Christmas time. And they were good. The environment was good. It's gotten better. They've gotten better. Obviously, that was a part of that transition, right, for them. Those guys became really good as later in their freshman year. They were really good, and then obviously had great careers. But Hilton Coliseum, Allen Fieldhouse, Rupp Arena as a player and coach. I've been in some really good environments. I think this one will be up there with those.
You give a little bit of an evaluation of nearing the midway point in the Big Ten season. You've seen a lot of other Big Ten teams play. Do you feel like Michigan is up there in the top echelon?
That's a long way to go. It's hard to. I try not to look at the standings till about February. Honestly, you really don't have a real gauge, or you start to see some separation. I think around the 1st of February. So for us, it's about just preparing for the next game. Obviously, if you look at the standings now, we haven't played all the top teams, the teams that are at the top currently. But time will come for that here pretty quickly, starting tomorrow. But I like our team. I like our ability to be able to compete with the best teams, whoever they are. There's some things we got to continue to get better at. I think we're showing some improvements in our taking care of the basketball, slowly, small victories there. Rebounding needs to continue to get better. And obviously we got to get back to shooting the ball the way we were shooting it earlier in the year.
What kind of pressure does Vlad's three-point shooting put on a defense, obviously, with all else he can do and the 4 guys around him?
Yeah, obviously as a coach who spends a lot of time focusing on defense myself, I think about if I had to prepare for us, all the things that I would imagine I have to take into account. And a month ago, Vlad making threes wouldn't have been one of those things. And now it seems like, he took 5 threes Sunday. So it's not like won a game, like he's something that he's growing great confidence in. And obviously his teammates are growing confidence in. It's becoming a real weapon for us. So just as another element, you not only have to deal with him at the rim, but if you got to deal with him as a perimeter guy, now not just picking rolls, but potentially picking pop situations, maybe as a trail guy. Bigs can't just run back, protect the paint, guarding him. So again, it just opens up the game. gives us another thing for us to be able to go to, and depending on the situation, who we're playing, how they're guarding us, then we can attack people another way.
How do you then coach Vlad with that as someone who probably most of his career hasn't, or most of his life, obviously his college career not so much, hasn't been a shooter, on not over pick and popping and still getting him to go to the rim and not splitting it like too far to, still making sure he gets those shots at the rim, even though he might be excited that, he's hitting shots.
Sure, it's natural, right? Something you start to become better at. You want to do more. We got to continue to trust his maturity, and what our team needs from him most is still to be a great paint presence on both ends of the floor. Sometimes what happens is you become less of a rebounder. We don't need him to become less of a rebounder because he's spending so much more time on the perimeter. But you also have to provide him with confidence that, given the time and score situations, we want him to feel comfortable taking them, because it does add another element for teams that have to factor in how they want to try to attack us. It may open up more driving, posting up opportunities for Danny or Roddy, who's struggled a little bit here the last couple of games. And so again, just trusting. He's been through enough college basketball. I think he still knows where his bread is mostly buttered. But at the same time, we want him to have confidence that we believe in it. It just can't become the thing that he does most. Still needs to get most of his job done closer to the basket.
Coach, Danny was one of those players that coming into the season, there were questions about how he'd slot in defensively, particularly against fours. How do you feel like he's done in balancing that? Sometimes he's guarding four, sometimes it's bigs.
If I'm being totally honest, I think the last couple games he's taken a little bit of a step back, particularly at Minnesota. And I think he was better later in the game Sunday than he was early. But I think he's taken a point of pride in our belief in his ability to do it. Because I think it was mostly a question for him. And I told this to somebody else, I can't remember who, when we were recruiting him and watching his film, I thought he was a better perimeter defender than he was a brute force post defender, because he's not overly physical. And in this league, there's an element of physicality you have to have if you go inside. So Vlad protects us there, and he's actually got pretty good feet, pretty good hands. He's a smart player, understands spacing and distance, understands when he's guarding quicker guys, he needs to give him a little bit more of a cushion, but uses length to still defend. And so I think he's, if I were grading him, I'd give him a B in terms of how he's been committed to it for the most part.
Where are you at defensively with like the amount of help you guys are bringing, how you're rotating, things like that? Is it, at times over-helping? I mean, where are you at just kind of with how that's all working?
Yeah, so part of it is the opponents, right? You got to factor in who you're playing and how they're going to try to attack you. Our defense, again, just candidly, we haven't been as disruptive as I would like us to be. I think teams have been right over 1 point per possession the last 4 or 5 games. We want to be under that as much as possible. But the last, certainly Northwestern played a lot of one-on-one. I remember USC, they were a heavy one-on-one team. Obviously, we're not going to play a team that plays a lot of one-on-ones. It's going to be a ton of pick and rolls with Smith and Trey Kaufman-Wren on Friday. So that'll put us in a different situation in terms of how much we help. They have a lot of really good shooters. So you may have to figure out how to play those pick and rolls 2-on-2 as much as you can, so that you don't also allow Braden Smith to fly Fletcher Lawyer for 5 or 6 threes, or Miles Coven for 5 or 6 threes, and now you're dealing with too many things at once. And so if we can figure out a way to deal with the pick and rolls in this particular game 2-on-2, that'll give us the best chance to guard him.
What makes Smith so tough to defend? It feels like he finds all the little soft spots in the defense.
Yeah, I watched him play a little bit before I got here. Obviously, they play so many national televised games. They play so many big games in tournaments. You've seen them, but until I started really studying to prepare for him, I didn't appreciate how smart he was. And I think it's just he's had so many reps. It's the benefit of being somewhere in a system that you learn over time, and being on the court a lot as a freshman. I'm sure he was making a lot more mistakes doing these things 3 years ago, but it's almost like he knows exactly what to expect every single possession. And so for a guy like that, you got to keep him off balance. If you give him a steady dose of anything, it's like a great quarterback. If he knows the coverage you're going to play, he's going to find the open receiver. He's going to know where to throw the ball. He does the same thing for them. He makes these unbelievable pocket passes in these really tight windows. And obviously he can score well. He's really good at shot fakes. He plays under control. very few flaws to his actual game. I mean, in terms of an NBA guy, I think he can make it. I see Peyton Pritchard, I see guys like that. The kid McConnell that played at Arizona, I see a lot of him and those guys. Just a little bit thinner than both of those guys, but I mean, he's definitely he's a wizard with the basketball.
You mentioned Roddy Gale, sort of, I mean, the shooting struggles. I
Yeah.
guess. Where do you think he's at? I mean, what are you guys working on?
I mean, I think a lot of times shooting for a guy who's shown the ability to shoot before becomes a confidence thing. It kind of comes and goes, and sometimes it comes and goes with the flow of your team. So if you're on a team with a lot of weapons, and so now you're not being asked to shoot your way out of a slump. Maybe you're only getting 2 or 3 opportunities versus 15 or 18. It's harder to find it confidently, right? And so we try to implore him to be as really good offensive rebounder, try to find his way to the basket, get to the free throw line more. And sometimes when you get an easy one that goes in, then it kind of triggers that belief again. And so there's no doubt right now he doesn't have a whole lot of confidence in the three-point shot. But we see him shoot it in practice. He still comes in and does the extra work to get back to it. And we just believe eventually he'll have a night where 4 or 5 go in, and sometimes that's all it takes.
Could that have been Sunday for Ruben? I know
Could have been,
Ruben,
yeah.
Ruben
No,
needed it.
same thing. Again, it's
The other things too, though. 'cause he
yeah,
had a lot of-
no
a
question,
lot.
no question. He had a tremendous impact on the game, and obviously his free throws late were huge for us. Sometimes just being in the game in that moment and helping your team have that success for veteran guys is all they need. For younger guys, it's harder to figure that out because they've never been asked to find other ways to impact the game. With those 2 guys in particular, Ruben and Roddy, they've been in enough college basketball. We feel like they can still play through offensive struggles because they know that there are other ways that they can impact our team defensively and rebounding and such.
My last one, but nobody minds. Do you think that you guys are going to need? I mean, building on this, and then, obviously Danny's kind of point forward, but might you need more out of the guard and wing position production wise, or do you feel comfortable about where everything is sort of coming from right now?
I mean, I think obviously you always want as many guys playing their best basketball as possible. I mean, that if you're going to ultimately make a real run at the conference championship, we're going to need more players to play consistently well, over the next month and a half. But you can't predict that, right? And sometimes the other team determines who gets to play well by the way they defend you, right? If they're double teaming Vlad every time, he's probably not going to get 30. If UCLA decided to double team him, which they didn't, whatever, that was their choice, right? He probably doesn't get 30, whatever it was, and somebody else has to find a way to impact the game. If those 2 bigs aren't in foul trouble, we don't need Trey necessarily in the second half to play as well. He stepped up and did it when we needed him to. So sometimes the game kind of dictates who and what is going to work to win. So if we can continue to keep our focus on whatever the team needs, I think Damari's probably done the best job of just kind of losing himself within the team and becoming a super efficient, scorer. I think he's one of the most efficient players in the country. I think he's like 4th in the country in like true shooting percentage. And we don't run anything really for him. He doesn't really play in ball screens. We don't really run him off staggers or anything like that. We do run some out of bounds plays for him, but he just finds ways to cut. He's playing off of the gravity that Danny and Vlad are drawing at the rim. So just as many guys can buy into that, then I think we'll still be able to max out.
The 3 scholarship freshmen, their minutes, as expected, I guess,
Sure.
have been inconsistent.
Sure.
But in practice, what have you kind of seen from those guys?
All 3 of them have had moments in practice where they look like, these guys deserve a chance to get in there. Having sat in the SEC, it's hard, when it's hard to look down there and know that point guard on the other side has been in, 150 games, and he's going to play 39 minutes, and he's going to know how to take advantage of what used to be Braden Smith 3 years ago. You know what I mean? Essentially, right? And so those guys just have to, when they get their opportunities, be ready to be as efficient as possible. Most of the time, we're asking them to just kind of hold the line if we need to get Trey a blow or get some foul trouble or something like that. But we need them in practice to continue to compete and be ready. Spend the extra time they do. They watch film a lot. So proud of them for. None of them is easy. I'm sure they're not getting great responses from their families about not playing as much as they maybe hoped they would. But that's just part of it. And college basketball is as old as it's ever been. And in this league, it's hard to play. I mean, I don't know. Rutgers obviously is playing 2 elite freshmen. Beyond that, I don't know how many freshmen are featured on any of the. I mean, Illinois has one. I think everybody's pretty much playing old guys. You know.
Mentioned the NBA a couple minutes ago. Do you get more of a chance to watch Cade Cunningham being
Yeah,
on the road?
yeah, I've been
Any
fortunate.
thoughts on his recent surge?
No, I mean, you know, I'm not surprised. I think I told somebody when I was coaching him his freshman year that I thought he'd be an NBA All-Star. I mean, I saw it in him, and I watched so much basketball. I'm not trying to be a prophet or anything. I think just his size, his skill, his poise, the gravity he has on affecting his teammates' ability to be good. Like, he makes everybody around him better. So I've been fortunate to be able to get down here and watch a few games, and certainly happy for him, and definitely happy that they're having some success, because I know the last couple of years have been really hard for him because winning is so important to him. Like, that's the only thing that he really values in the game is winning. Doesn't really care about his stats. He'll do whatever it takes. Honestly, wish I would have got him some more shots when I coached him. But that's part of who he is, right? He wants everybody to feel like they're a part of it, and obviously he's got them playing really good basketball right now.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.